This is Greatest Hits Radio. It's confession time. Just before we enter the confessional, of course, we always have to choose a very fine beverage just to get us through the rest of the night. What are you choosing for us today, Sister Susie from the pub?
Well, to celebrate the spring equinox today, I thought we'd go for a nice pink rosé wine.
Oh, okay.
Nice big glass of that. I quite like a Mirabeau from France, but, you know.
Half a pint, thank you very much. Drink responsibly, remember.
Exactly like that. So
tonight's confession comes from Freddie, Simon and the Collective Forgiveness Crew. I don't think there's a certification issue on this one. This has been playing on my mind since confessions appeared on a radio station recently vacated by a Mr. Ken Bruce. But what a joy it is to find out that I can finally lift the burden of this particular misdemeanor. My confession goes back to the mid-90s, when I was a young, fresh-faced 20-year-old and living at home with my parents. My mother was friends with a very nice chap who could throw a bit of paint on a canvas and produce wonderful floral works of art. Worthy of the old-time greats, I think. None of this modern art rubbish, as Matt would think. One Christmas, it was a Christmas confession. One Christmas, my mother was gifted one of these elegant pieces by the kindly gentleman. She proudly hung it on the wall above the mantelpiece. One particular day, my mother went out and left me alone in the house. Well, nearly alone. We had a feisty Yorkshire Terrier with boundless amounts of energy. We're going to call him Rover, so we changed the name of the dog.
Of the dog, clearly.
Always helpful.
Yeah.
On leaving me with the bothersome hound, my mother left strict instructions that I should keep him entertained and tire him out. As a fresh-faced 20-year-old alone in the house, many things were on my mind, none of which involved entertaining the dog. Now, being the 90s, there was no internet or on-demand television to keep me interested. Instead, I thought I'd read the Financial Times and a few editions of the London Review of Books that were lying around. Whilst perusing these magazines on the sofa, I would throw Rover's ball through the living room and into the kitchen. Rover would happily retrieve the ball and yap incessantly till I threw it again and again and again. Rover's yapping was getting more and more urgent and my interest and aim was wavering. In my frustration, I threw Rover's ball a little too hard, causing it to bounce and ricochet off the mantelpiece, narrowly missing the priceless tat that my mother had placed there. It did, however, dislodge the prized painting, sending it flying through the air, landing fairly and squarely on the fireside tool set. You know, the ones with the little shovel, brush and tongs that no one ever uses to poke a fire. My face fell as stupid Rover jumped onto the picture, tearing it even more. I wrestled the remains from his jaws and jumped into action. My dad had recently spent quite a lot of money on a fancy new PC, and more importantly, a very expensive colour printer and scanner. Knowing my mother would be out for some time, I raced to the local stationers and bought some very fancy art paper. On my return, I pieced together the remnants of the painting and placed it on the all-important colour scanner. After some hasty retouching and blending on the PC, the final print was ready for reframing and placing back in pride of place above the fireplace. This is sounding like an ad.
This is amazing.
For Yellow Pages. And the original was confined to the bin outside, ready for the next day's collection. The best I could hope for in such a situation is that nothing would happen and that everything would continue exactly as before, which is exactly what did happen. Nobody was, or indeed is, any the wiser to the forgery that hangs to this moment in the living room.
Wow.
Father Simon, many years have passed, and so has the original artist. His work now becoming rather sought after and valuable, as they so often do when an artist goes to meet his maker. Here's the thing. I don't beg forgiveness from my mother, who is none the wiser, and still enjoys the painting every bit as much as she did before. Let's face it, she could have another one printed for the kitchen if she wanted it. Neither do I beg forgiveness from my sister, who has also exhibited an interest in the picture and has been reliably informed that it will be passed to her in the event of the unthinkable. I do, however, beg forgiveness from my nieces and nephews that may pass the family heirloom down through the generations, particularly should one of them take it to the Fiona Bruce of the day, only to be told it's worthless bubblejet print. I hope you like my confession, says Freddie. I feel better already. Well, I mean, it's quite a shocking art confession, really. Excuse me. I mean, deception, but everyone at the moment is quite happy because no one has had it valued yet. Sister Susie, please.
Yeah, I understand what Freddie's done here. However, he is right. People will be thinking that's worth a lot of money, and it won't be because it's something you did yourself. I think the issue is irresponsible dog ownership, because if he'd have taken Rover for a walk and, threw the ball on a walk and tied him out, then he would have come home, Rover would have fallen asleep, he could have read his books to his heart's content, and none of that would have happened. So if he'd have just looked after Rover a bit better, I don't think he would have needed any of this, and he still would have had the original. So for that reason, I'm not going to forgive him.
I'm thinking if Freddie's sister is listening, she knows immediately what we're talking about here. As absolutely no question. And she might have already financed. She might have thought, that's going to be worth a few.
She might have already spent the money in her head.
Yes, the artist has just died, so it's going to be worth a whole lot more money.
Yeah.
Ka-ching, thanks very much. Brother from another.
I mean, I'm going to forgive, if only just to be a fly on the wall when the sister does take it to the valuer and they go, yeah, this is a print, not the real thing.
Bubble
Unlucky.
jet.
Absolutely. But the reason I'm going to forgive is I want to know the name of this printer, because I'll tell you now, I mean, if this was printed in the 90s and it's on paper and still looks like the real thing, stuff that I print, within weeks, it's all faded. It looks like Dead Sea Scrolls. So, no, definitely forgiven.
I want to know who this gentleman was who was very friendly enough with the mother to actually say, here, have some free art.
Absolutely.
Anyway, it's the people's verdict. It's entirely down to you. 61054, first word is Simon. Do you forgive Freddie for this art crime or not? And it's after 6. Hello, good evening. This is Greatest Hits Radio. Drive time till 7 o'clock, Jackie Bramble's time. Tonight's confession came from Freddie. And he should have been entertaining the dog and throwing the ball for the dog. However, he wasn't thinking properly, and he threw a ball. It knocked the painting off the wall, ruined the painting. He then kind of touched it. It was supposed to be very valuable, this painting, but he made a new one with the remains of the old painting and also a new colour printer and scanner, which his dad had invested in. It still hangs above the mantelpiece. Everyone thinks it's worth thousands because the original artist has passed on, but actually it's worth like 5p. So here's the people's verdict. What do they say?
So Elise in Norwich says, totally forgive Freddie. Is he now an incredible graphic designer or something? How on earth did he fake a professional painting using tech from the 90s? Impressive. Michael in Edinburgh, though, not forgiven. I would have been so upset if one of my paintings on the wall was ruined by the pet dog. He should have taken the dog out for a walk in the first place. And Alice says, forgiven, only because I have a dog myself who did a very similar thing years ago. My pet Labrador jumped on the sofa and pulled the painting off the wall.
So here's the thing. If you have a confession, we'd like to swap it for a smart speaker. Send your tale, please, to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Too much detail.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's confession time, and let's just check in with... Oh, there's the David Jacobs Memorial trolley. Yeah. And Sue's just snatching a bottle of something cheeky, I think. What have you got there?
I have, well, it's World Vermouth Day today, so I've grabbed a bottle of vermouth. I've gone with the... It is.
World Vermouth Day.
Of course it is. Happy Vermouth Day, everyone.
I'm celebrating Vermouth Day by having some tap water and an orange.
Yeah.
Nice. But yes, normally an ingredient in a martini or, a Negroni, but you can have it on its own with soda water. Very delicious.
Thank you very much for being topical. With the trolley.
You're welcome.
Excellent trolley news.
Yeah.
So today's confession comes from Nigel. Nigel, thank you very much. Simon, and Ms. Yin and Mr. Yang. I'm anticipating a balanced view, says Nigel.
Yeah.
Can I just say, today's confession does contain 1970s educational attitudes.
Okay.
Lots of flying chalk.
Let me paint... Worse.
Oh, really?
Let me paint a picture, says Nigel. It's the early summer of 1971. I'm 14 years old and approaching the day I'll be leaving school forever and starting my engineering apprenticeship, soon after approaching my 15th birthday during the summer holes. So this is different times.
Yeah.
My friends and I are draped in the fashion of the day. Hair, #1 crop with razor side parting. Tops, casual. Fred Perry tennis shirt, smart. Strides, casual. Levi's 501 jeans with half-inch turn-up. Oxblood red Dr. Martin boots.
Yeah.
Coats,
Nice.
casual, smart. And now the big one, which will become all too clear. Single-breasted, all-wool, navy blue Crombie overcoat, complete with silk handkerchief held in place with a diamond-cut tie-pin in the breast pocket. Yes, Father Simon, we are fully fledged skinheads, but nice skinheads. We are tasty, or so we thought. So it's a fairly average lunch break that I'm telling you about here. And 3 or 4 of us are hanging out in the 4th floor cloakroom when something catches my eye. It's the lining of a discarded 50s style double-breasted gabardine raincoat, complete with plastic belt buckle and buttons. Who would possibly be seen in such a ridiculous garment, I thought. No wonder it was in the bin. It had been discarded. Anyway, back to the lining, which had caught my eye. It was beautiful. It was a 2-tone silk material. "Look at this," says I. "Wouldn't it make great handkerchiefs for our crombies?" "Well, let's have some," says Richard, my best mate at the time. That's how it's written.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Like he's in the Sweeney.
Yeah.
We then proceeded to cut 12-inch squares out of the lining and use them to replace our existing handkerchiefs in our crombies. So it's the morning of the next day, and our mood was to be abruptly changed. We are all seated in a row in the school hall, waiting for the headmaster to arrive and conduct the whole school assembly. 9 o'clock came and went. 5 minutes went, 10 minutes went, 15 minutes went. All the time we were being shushed by teachers every time anyone opened their mouths. Finally, at nearly 9:30, in flounced Grimes, the headmaster, all mortarboard and black gown flowing as he tore up the steps to the stage. "I expect you're wondering why I've kept you all here." At this point, Father Simon, to be honest, we couldn't give a monkey's.
No.
It just meant less maths or English or whatever it was for our first lesson of the day. So he continued. "I have spent the last hour with an extremely angry and distraught mother who presented me with her son's gabardine raincoat that had been cut to ribbons in a vicious act of callous vandalism." In complete unison, we all slowly put our right hands to our top left pockets of our crombies and pushed the offending items deep down into the pocket so as not to be seen. Now, it's not for the act of what you could see as vandalising the raincoat, but actually was just recycling, that I beg forgiveness. As a parent myself now, I know the cost of these things. So on reflection, I know it was an inexcusable act that should not go unpunished, even if I did really believe it was an abandoned item of clothing. It's what happened next. Grimes, the head teacher's rant went on for some time, a bit like Antonio Conte's.
Yes.
I just added
How
that.
true.
About how it was unacceptable in his school, and then finally the crescendo statement. "A number of third-year boys were seen in the vicinity of the 4th floor cloakroom yesterday lunchtime. Therefore, I want every boy from the 3rd year outside my office straight after assembly, where I intend to cane each and every one of you." I have to tell you, Father Simon, the rub was we were all in the 4th year at the time.
Oh.
So
Oh, dear.
Each time we changed lessons, we had to pass the headmaster's office with a new bunch of victims from the year below us, awaiting their unjustified fate. These were the SWATs, Father Simon, who had been model students until this time. So it is for the inadvertently subjecting these 50 plus poor victims of an unjust autocratic judicial system that I ask forgiveness. Hindsight is a sometimes dish served cold. If I could put back time and put aside my dedication to the fashion of the day, although we did look quite cool, says Nigel in his opinion. I'm not sure that fashion has got much to do with it, although actually fashion has got everything to do with it.
It's got everything to do with it.
Because it's the lining that attracted him and his chums in the first place. Let's see where we go with Sister Susie, the voice of authority.
Well, I feel like what Nigel did here is he acted a bit too quickly, because you know what he should have done is left it a couple of days, maybe a bit longer, to see if that jacket was still there and was really abandoned. Because, you know, in the pub we get lots of lost property, and you can't just take something the first day. But if it's still there after a month, then maybe you can. I don't know, but I do feel like it wasn't fair for the 3rd years. So therefore, I'm not going to forgive you, Nigel, because you should have owned up.
Definitely not fair on the 3rd years. Brother from another guy.
Well, I mean, am I alone here in thinking that it had had been abandoned. I mean, it felt like it had been there for ages. No one was claiming this gabardine raincoat, and so they put it to good use. They were recycling well ahead of their time in recycling the guy, and it turned out that it didn't need to be recycled. But really, that's the fault of the child that left the raincoat there for so long. Think about that.
So long.
And
It's like 5
also,
minutes.
it's not their fault that a bunch of third years are getting caned. It's the system. It's the man, and specifically
It's
Mr. Grimes.
Grimes, their teacher.
Yeah. It's him that needs to be asking forgiveness. So for that reason, nothing to forgive. Completely forgiven.
The people's verdict is what's expected. So do you forgive Nigel, yes or no? On the text, please, 61054. First word is Simon. Your forgiveness, please. Nigel is the person asking for it. Does he get it? 61054. First word is Simon. Over to you. But we had a confession merely moments ago from young Nigel, and a story about how he and his mates got about 50 third years caned. I mean, that's essentially what it boils
Yes.
down to, because they removed a lining from a gabardine coat. Anyway, it was a shocking tale from 1971. What do the people say?
Well, bags and bags of verdicts tonight, so here's a selection. Alice in Leeds says, forgiven, I blame the headmaster. It's not Nigel's fault that he caned all the pupils. I'd have absolutely done the same. And Liam Barnstable says, forgiven, who's to say that these third-year students hadn't planted the coat in the first place? They were loitering. And Rich says, not forgiven, I had a similar experience where a whole year were due to be punished for a little outing 5 of us had to the neighbouring girls' school, where we were spotted in a sixth form common room. We all agreed to stand up and own up in assembly. To mine and my best mate's dismay, when the moment came, all the others remained seated. The head teacher actually let us off in the end.
There you go. So it's that kind of thing that we're after, and maybe you have a school tale for us from back in the day. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Casey and the Sunshine Band, that's the way I like it. It's 5:45. This is Greatest Hits Radio. It's confession time. Time to give away another smart speaker. Plus, also, we get to partake
There it is.
of something that has been grabbed from the David Jacobs Memorial Trolley as it trundles past. What do you grab today, Suze?
I've grabbed a bottle of Asahi, which is a Japanese super dry premium lager, which is very tasty.
Okay. Can we have 3 of those for later?
Yes, please.
3 of those for later
Once
will
we've
be
finished on air, obviously.
excellent.
Tonight's tale comes from Damien and is a morality tale.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
All right.
Father Simon, Matt and Susie, the Confessional Collective. My story starts a few years back when the family embarked on a holiday to Greece. There were 14 of us. Myself and my wife, our 3 adult children with their partners, and 6 grandchildren. It's a big operation.
Yeah.
Wowza.
The 4 family units embarked on the arduous task of planning a holiday that would suit all requests and expectations of a family holiday. Eventually, with everyone agreeing, we booked an all-inclusive hotel holiday on Crete. As part of the restaurant arrangements, the front of house was managed by a burly, strong-willed Greek lady called Atlanta, who made it her mission in life to say, no, this is not possible, to any request to move tables, sit together, or
Okay.
generally inquire about anything outside her steadfast routine. So for the first few days, we all sat in smaller groups for dinner and met up after eating for drinks and the compulsory hotel event team's entertainment
Oh,
show.
yes.
Oh, yes.
Meet the gang, because the boys are here.
Yeah, they are.
The following day, we all agreed that it would be nice to have the occasional evening meal together as a family. I was sent to attempt to reserve a table for the 14 of us for that evening. With a plan in my head of how I was going to accomplish this, I walked up to the restaurant to complete my task. After a few minutes of persuasion, Atlanta finally agreed, so I headed back to inform the family that I had been successful in securing us an area to sit together for a family meal. There was, however, a slight hitch. There was good news and bad news. The good news was we could all have a meal seated together that evening. The bad news is I had told Atlanta it was our eldest son's, Chris's, birthday, as she had demanded a special reason as to why we wanted to sit together. This then generated a few looks of disbelief, disappointment, and I'd say hostility towards me, as I had now set in motion a chain of lies that had to be pulled off, and what became known as Mission Birthday. That's what we were all involved with. It turns out that teaching grandchildren to lie to get your way wasn't appreciated by the unapproving family, but they soon came around to accepting that the lie had been told and we were all going to have to go along with it.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout the day, announcements were made by the pool DJ of Chris's birthday, the drinks that were required, the birthday presents that had to be secured, and explanations to the grandkids made of why it was Uncle Chris's birthday today and not in 6 months' time, like it always is.
Yeah.
With the plan in place, we all got ready for our evening meal and we made our way to join the restaurant queue. Our favourite Greek lady, Atlanta, was there waiting and beckoned us all through to the table which had been set up. At this point, I started to realise that my lie may have gone too far. The restaurant staff, 25 of them, lined the path towards our beautifully decorated table, flowers, drinks and small gifts already laid out.
Wow.
We arrived to Happy Birthday playing over the restaurant speakers. We started to present Chris with his presents, hastily bought from the hotel gift shop and all wrapped in a German newspaper in place of wrapping paper.
Oh, my goodness.
Also, rocks from the beach had been decorated with nail varnish to read Crete Rock. And a broken flip-flop found in the hotel pool had been carefully wrapped and presented by the grandkids.
Right.
Such fantastic presents we
Yes.
had. With a few confused looks from other guests and staff, we proceeded through our meal, thinking that we got away with it. That was until the staff all reappeared again, walking towards our table singing Happy Birthday, and followed by the entire kitchen staff, including the chef, who was carrying his greatest ever birthday cake creation, iced up with Happy Birthday Chris written across it, with amazing decorations and chocolate gifts for all the family. It was now that I knew that my single lie had got out of control and we needed to escape before one of the honest grandchildren let the cat out of the bag. You see where one lie leads you?
One lie, yeah.
So to the confessional collective, not only do I ask forgiveness from the staff of the hotel, especially to Atlanta, who I instigated the lie with, to the chef and his team for their time and efforts to make the most amazing birthday cake I had ever seen. I also ask forgiveness from the whole family for teaching the grandchildren that lying gets you what you want, and that by telling a string of lies, you get cake.
Yeah.
Says Damien. Lying is
okay.
always wrong, Father Simon, no matter who you are. I do not, however, ask for forgiveness from Chris, as he had the most memorable birthday ever. Well, I'm sure he did, and that was clearly a memorable birthday, like
Yes.
a double birthday, an extra bonus birthday, and they all got a meal in the end together. But it's a morality tale for today. What do you say, Sister Susie?
Well, Damien, do you know what? I think you went to so much effort there to keep it all covered up and true, and you know that's a massive family. What I don't understand is I've kind of got an issue with Atlanta here, because why couldn't she just sit you together just because you're a family and you're all on holiday?
Yeah, anyway,
don't
yes.
understand why that's just enough of a reason. So I feel like it all stems down to Atlanta, really. However, you know, teaching kids to lie is probably not the best idea. So for that reason, I feel like I shouldn't forgive, but I'm going to, because I don't feel like it was your fault. I feel like it was Atlanta's.
If it involves lying to children, I know Matthew is always going to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Definitely going to be forgiving there. I mean, normally though, you'd think, you know, Atlanta was saying you can't have so many people sitting together because those are the rules and you can't break the rules. But they found a way around. I love the fact that the pool DJ decided to get involved as well. What's it got to do with you, Sunshine? Nothing. But, you know, I think what we've learned from this particular tale is that if you do tell lies, it all catches up with you in the end.
Does it?
Doesn't
Yes.
it?
Did it?
Sunshine.
Once you've had some cake, it does anyway.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it, pal? Yeah, forgiven.
People's verdict, please. I'm not sure what you're making of Damien. Let us know. The people's verdict. Do you forgive, yes or no? On the text 61054, start your message with Simon. Exactly 6:10. Got a confession from Damien. Family holiday to Crete. The only way they could get 14 of them, the only way they could eat together was by lying to Atlanta, who was in charge of the place. And then the little lie became a big lie, and it was all very embarrassing. But they got a massive old cake out of it. So I don't know what morals we learn from this, Matt, but tell us about the people's verdict.
So, Jerry, not forgiven. Be sure that your sins will find you out. But Sister Susie forgives, so hold the front page. Rachel says...
True, that is true.
That is very true. Rachel says Damien is not forgiven. Yes, they got to sit together, but it can't have been a particularly relaxing evening, worrying about whether one of the children would spill the beans. Oh, and it's never okay to lie to get cake. Lying to get cake is the beginning beginning of the slippery slope
Is
to
it?
worse things.
Okay.
And Claire in Cardiff says, I forgive Damien. My son and daughter's judo coach was Greek, and his 3 favourite English words were, is not possible. So similar to Atlanta. P.S. Love the show.
Okay, well, that's very good. Maybe that has made you think that you have a confession that you'd like to share with us. So, if so, motivated maybe by greed because you fancy that smart speaker, then send it to confessions@greatesthitsradio.co.uk. Well, it's confession time, and let's just grab something there because look out, it's the... There goes our drinks trolley. Susie, what have you grabbed from the upper shelf as it went past there?
I've grabbed a bottle of amaretto to make amaretto sours for all of us.
I don't want one, actually. Do you want one, Matt?
I'll have 2.
Okay, you can
Yeah.
have mine.
You can have Simon.
How much would that cost in your bar?
I don't know.
I would say, would it be,
3?
We
Yeah.
don't do cocktails.
would it be like £1.20?
Something like that, I think.
think
Yeah.
so.
We
1
do
and 6.
daiquiris. You can have 2 daiquiris for £10.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll have one of those then.
That is interesting. Yeah.
Tonight's confession comes from Max. There's a reason for this pub-themed conversation. Max says, Simon, Matt, Susie and team, my confession goes back to the late 80s when I ran a bar in the Isle of Man. We had a football team who played most Sundays in a local league and were pretty successful, considering the amount of beer they'd consumed the night before. I was always in awe of their ability to finish a game, never mind actually win it. We traditionally used to go away at Easter for a feast of football, which included playing at least one game and then going to watch one of the team members' favourite clubs, which included Blackburn, York, Rochdale, Crewe, Everton, Halifax, and even Frank Sidebottom's famous Timperley Big Shorts. So, a whole bunch of fine teams to choose from. I was a bit older than the lads, and being a responsible licensee, I had the job of driving the minibus, which was actually quite a relief, as it meant I didn't have to join in with the ridiculous drinking games or keep up the rounds of drinks, which used to start first thing in the morning as we waited to board the ferry.
Oh, no.
That's
No,
always
never a good idea.
Bags
always
not on that
trouble.
ferry.
Yeah, me too.
It was after a successful trip away that we were heading back home to the island, catching the ferry from Liverpool and carrying on the Manx tradition of having the last pint in the Pig and Whistle, the closest pub to the boat. When the landlady came over to ask us if we were going to the Isle of Man, I said yes. She then pointed to the corner of the bar where we saw a chap who we knew, let's call him Stuart, slumped drunkenly over his luggage, fast asleep. She said, could you do me a favour, please, lads? I haven't served him anything, but he came in like that, and I'd lose my licence if anyone saw him in that state on my premises. Please, could you take him with you? Well, says Max, being a publican myself, I sympathised with her predicament. Susie will understand. Looks just checking.
Susie will
do you
understand.
Yeah, just
Yes,
checking.
I
Oh, right.
understand.
Okay.
Of course. So we reluctantly agreed to take him with us, having to virtually carry him and his luggage to the ferry terminal. Nowadays, I don't think he would have been allowed to travel in that state, but they were different times, so we blagged him through on our group ticket and made our way onto the ship, finding him a quiet corner of the lounge and leaving him to sleep for the rest of his journey home. Anyway, fast forward a couple of weeks, and I saw Stuart walking in the street, and he came over and he said, Max, I believe you helped me to get on the ferry the other day. I said, yes, well, you weren't capable of doing it yourself, so we thought we'd help. Well, Max says, that's very kind. You probably thought you were doing the right thing, but I'd actually just got off the ferry.
Yeah.
After a boozy crossing with my relatives, and I was due to go to a funeral the next day.
Oh, no.
So he missed the funeral. Oh,
But
no.
thanks to you, I had to dash down to the airport where I got fleeced for an exorbitant last-minute airfare.
Oh, dear.
See, there are consequences.
There are, aren't there?
Always consequences. So I'm not sure who I'm asking for forgiveness from, as Stuart got to his funeral. I mean, he had less money, and he got there in time, but maybe it's the poor crew of the Isle of Man Steam Packet Company who had to clean up after Stuart,
Oh, really?
who probably deserve our sympathy.
Oh.
So thank you in advance for your patience and understanding. I mean, like I said, there are consequences.
There are.
For the
So
staff of the Isle of Man Steam
Yeah.
Packet Company, consequences for the people who wanted to go to the funeral, and consequences if you just have a few too many ales. Oh, beautiful.
Wow, what a fade.
I don't think
Goodness
anyone
me.
noticed
No, they didn't.
that one piece of music had finished
No.
and another one
one.
had started.
Let's get the Academy on the phone.
Lovely.
Let's just check in with publican Sister Susie, the voice of
Yeah.
responsibility.
Well, there's quite a few things here. I'm quite worried that he got that to that state in the first place, and how he was just left there by the landlady or landlord. But I've been there when people are maybe a bit worse for wear than you think they are, and then you're like, oh God, what am I going to do now? How am I going to get rid of them? And you did them a favour. You put him on the ferry. I'm not sure the ferry was the best place, as I'm sure all the staff on the ferry will agree. However, just because you got him out of the pub and it wasn't the responsibility of the landlord anymore, I'm going to forgive you.
Because I think the landlady did. She did the right thing because she didn't want to serve him anymore. In fact,
Yeah.
she hadn't served him at all. So he just arrived like that. So she was probably doing the right thing, and then they were doing the right thing. So everyone has been doing the right
They
thing,
were trying to do the right thing. Yeah.
apart from Stuart, brother from another guy.
Well, was the landlady doing the right thing? I'm going to argue that the person who bears all the responsibility in this particular confession is the landlady. She's the one going up and saying, can you put this guy on the ferry? Even though, who was telling her to put him on the ferry?
Wait,
She's
she didn't want him in the pub.
He's got some
Yeah,
luggage.
because then
and
she
he's,
seems like she's
and then
responsible.
Get him
for
out of
getting
my
in that
pub.
state when she didn't.
Get him on the ferry. I've no idea whether he needs to get on the ferry, but get him on the ferry. So it's actually the landlady's fault when we all think about it. And also, I've never understood this mixture of booze and choppy waters. That seems like a recipe from hell. So for that reason, and all those reasons, I'm going to forgive.
I don't think you're going to get away with that because I think the one blameless person here is the landlady.
Definitely
Yeah.
not the landlady.
Because she just wanted him off.
Get him out of my pub
It's
on a
get him
boat.
out.
In fact, it's Stuart. It's
You can
Stuart's
put him
fault.
on the ferry or not, just get him out the door.
Get him out of my pub.
It's all Stuart's fault. You
Get
haven't
out
got a
my
pub.
pub.
Anyway,
Get out of my pub.
well, this is provoking an unexpected squabble.
Yeah.
So it's basically all down to you. It's the people's verdict. Whose side are you on? If you're going to text in and say, I agree with Matt, but then don't forget to then not agree with Matt by agreeing with me and Susie, because we, of course, are correct. The people's verdict, please. Do you forgive Max, yes or no? On the text 61054, first word is silent. Max had his confession read out. He gets the smart speaker. They were trying to help Stuart because they thought he needed to get back to the Isle of Man on the Isle of Man ferry. They didn't realise, because he'd had too much, that he'd actually only just got off the ferry and was heading towards a funeral. Anyway, the landlady was a terrific woman who did precisely the right thing, as opposed to what Matt was saying. Max, the people's verdict, stand by, here it comes.
Everyone like me forgiving tonight. Sam in Manchester, forgiven. Max was trying to be the good Samaritan and help Stuart out. How was he to know he just got off the ferry? Alice in Norwich, forgiven. Max did the landlady a favour. I think everyone was trying to do the right thing, but it all backfired. And Rachel says, forgiven. No, Matt, sorry, but Max and the landlady are blameless. Stuart, however, shouldn't have got legless. It's all his fault. No sympathy. Drinking on the ferry.
There you go. That's self-evidently...
So true.
Self-evidently the right answer. Anyway, it may well be that that's provoked a thought that you too have a tale you'd like to exchange for a smart speaker. Send it as soon as you can. Confessions at greatesthitsradio.co.uk.